All right, and welcome back. And now we've got Mark Solomon joining us to dig through these updates to FedEx and UPS rates. Mark, I'm glad that we were able to get you on because it's an interesting case as we look to head into 2024. Talk to us a little bit about what both carriers are doing to their rates.
Good morning, guys. Both carriers have announced what are called general rate increases of 5.9%. That's 1 percentage point, full percentage point below last year's record levels. But the 5.9% GRI is basically for show. Virtually all parcel volumes are negotiated under contract. The GRI applies to tariff rates, which are strictly non-contract movements. You have to go under the hood to see what FedEx and UPS plan to do with rate adjustments, and chances are most shippers will be paying well over a 5.9% increase year on year.
And Mark, we're looking at the general rate increases. Can you break down what it would mean, I guess, by shorter distances and what it really kind of looks like going into 2024?
Both carriers have gone below or at the GRI for shorter distances. That's a nod to the increasing competition from regional carriers and as well as from Amazon, which has gone from a national hub and spoke network to 8 regional distribution nodes. UPS and FedEx know they have to compete much more strongly on the shorter hauls, which are 600 miles, between 300 and 600 miles. They need to price their services competitively to do that. The longer haul stuff, they can go up to 7-8%, but much of the United States operates, at least parcel industry operates in regional networks nowadays.
So, Mark, as we're kind of heading into peak season 2023, of course, everybody was watching FedEx very, very closely because they had put out so many of those cost-cutting measures through the summer and really kind of doubled down on their cost reduction structure. I think that I was honestly expecting a little bit of a higher GRI to kind of make up again for that difference and really start to build back on some of their lost revenue. Were you surprised at all with the fact that it was an equal match between FedEx and UPS at 5.9%, especially considering that FedEx had that goal of cutting costs, increasing revenue, and UPS is, of course, having to now pay for the Teamsters contract that was finalized at the end of the summer?
Kaylee, I wasn't surprised at FedEx's move. I think they want to take market share from UPS and keep it. They want to go to market with a more competitive rate with the idea that their cost cutting has reduced their go-to-market costs, and they can move to a lower rate with more comfort. What kind of surprised me is that UPS came in at 5.9%. I think it wanted to go higher. It's got, obviously, as you mentioned, labor cost issues for the first year of the contract, which are quite onerous. On top of that, they're looking to recapture over 1 million parcels that were diverted in the weeks and months leading up to the contract when things were getting kind of dicey in the negotiation cycle. But I think UPS realized they could not go that far above market and win back business. FedEx planted the flag at 5.9%. UPS wanted to go higher. I just don't think they were in a position, given the competition, given the fact that the market is soft, demand is soft, and they just didn't feel like they were ready to go above the FedEx threshold.
And Mark, when we're looking into this, do we see any kind of variances with the types of packages when we're looking at small parcel packages versus larger packages being shipped?
Anthony, the shippers, the customers tendering larger packages are going to get hammered. Next year, you're looking at 17 to 21% increases. That reflects the cost of running large shipments outside of the normal parcel processing network. There are additional labor costs and operating costs to serve that go with handling larger outsized packages. And there are some packages that are so big that the carriers don't want to take them. So they price them to such exorbitant levels that carriers can avoid taking them if shippers will look elsewhere to get those parcels moved, most notably LTL. There's a lot of oversized stuff that the carriers would rather not take, and they price those services accordingly.
I think that's an interesting way to look at that, right? Is we don't want it, so we're gonna try and see if we'll just get you to make that decision. For these regional carriers, as you mentioned, who are maybe looking to capitalize on a little bit of the market share, do you think that this presents an opportunity for them, or are shippers likely just to stay with FedEx and UPS, stay with those big two, and then kind of push off maybe their overflow or their excess volumes into those regional carriers?
The market is ripe for regional carriers to gain share. Regional carriers are expanding their value proposition. They are becoming, in some cases, quasi-national in nature. OnTrack is becoming pretty much a national carrier now that they've expanded into Texas and will move into Chicagoland probably next year. There's also the technology is a lot better to help shippers compare and manage alternate delivery options. The regional carriers have a very good proposition, and they gain traffic from UPS shippers in the weeks and months leading up to the contract. It's going to be very difficult to dislodge that business from the regionals because they have inherently low cost to serve. They're serving regions. They don't have the overhead. They actually offer very good service, in many cases next day service within their regions. They are more of a force now than they've ever been because the market is full of different providers who can offer alternatives to the national carriers.
So it looks like there's going to be a lot of mixed messages coming from these increases. Mark, thanks so much for joining us and shedding some light on this current situation.
You're welcome, guys. Have a good rest of the day.
You as well. Right now, we're going to toss things over to Kelly Nix for our next look at today's weather.